I define Liga MX as the shoot your shot league.
You do expect higher performances and better things from Club Americas, but it's the inconsistencies.
Isn't this inconsistent though?
I will maintain that the U.S. men's national team came out to the knockout round despite terrible coaching.
Like they have a student discount maybe to go to Pumas games? Like they got it, right?
No.
To take that next step, I think it's still undisputed that you have to go to Europe.
He's going to be on the ground for the majority of the time. No,
I
look back at highlights.
That's the Christian Pulisic treatment, though.
Same.
We're going to have to stop this. We're going to start arguing on this podcast, aren't we?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Real Futbol Show. As always, I'm Lizzy, U.S. editor over at 90min US, covering North American football, with my co-host, Geno Canelo. How are you?
Doing well, Lizzy. Doing well. As you can see, I have a lot of boxes behind me here in the process of moving, so it's been a little hectic, but excited for the start of the MLS season because that starts tomorrow, and it's going to be phenomenal.
It really is, and it wouldn't be MLS if there wasn't chaos before the first game of the season. So let's get right into it. Kind of breaking news. The special edition of El Tráfico was just postponed due to severe weather in LA. I heard in the uphills there's a blizzard warning and then severe thunderstorms going on near the Rose Bowl. And the problem with that stadium is basically it doesn't have enough shelter in place should there be a thunderstorm. So postponed indefinitely. Regardless, I think it's a win for LA Galaxy because Chicharito wasn't going to be able to feature anyway after he left a training session on Tuesday injured with a hamstring injury. So postponed.
Chaos already for the MLS. Again, I mean, obviously you have to make these decisions based on safety, of course. You can't just say, oh, let's play the game, especially with the way the Rose Bowl is situated. Like you said, there really isn't much shelter in place area. I mean, if you've ever seen the Rose Bowl, seen a picture of the Rose Bowl, it's literally a bowl with just like open seats. There's no overhang. It's all open. So, it makes sense that they cancel the game. It's awful that they had to cancel it. It sucks, that they had to cancel the game. Because that's your marquee game this weekend, right? You come back from MLS, new Apple TV deal, and you get LAFC, LA Galaxy. So it stinks from our perspective, but from a safety perspective, it's something that needed to happen.
Yeah, I think the narrative was really great. A fantastic way of opening the 2023 campaign, especially after the league confirmed that more than 70,000 tickets were sold. LA Galaxy and LAFC were really hunting down Charlotte FC for that single game attendance record. We know that Charlotte holds that after their season opener last year. They held 74,429 fans.
I don't know, but if you just go watch our documentary on our YouTube page, then you can find the answer there.
Yeah, and we just wrote an article about it as well, which is why I know the exact number, not because I did a deep dive on Charlotte. But yeah, so they were really chasing down that single game attendance record, which we might see in a little bit. I think attendance would have been hurt had the game not been postponed. So definitely an interesting way to head into the weekend. But yes, as you said, safety first, super important. So glad that's been postponed. Mm-hmm. Other games, obviously we know St. Louis is playing their first MLS game ever. They're debuting against Austin FC on the road before their first home match on week 2. And Nashville also plays, we know, Portland versus Sporting Kansas City was also postponed. That's been given a date to, I believe, on Monday due to the weather again in Portland. I believe that is a snowstorm rather than thunderstorms.
Excuse me. Yeah, I would imagine with a blizzard warning up north in California, that probably also is affecting Portland area. So it wouldn't be an MLS weekend if I didn't, even with the new MLS schedule structure where games are being played on Saturdays, basically the entire, that's the only game, still we're going to get games 3 days a week than the first week. So a little adjustment for the first week, but it'll be exciting still with the games that are still on the slate.
Yeah, and it's exciting, especially in that schedule change, having games on Wednesday and Saturday. And we were fortunate enough, I was invited by the league to check out the new studios and talk to MLS Commissioner Don Garber, St. Louis FC owner Caroline Kindle. We spoke to her and a couple of the new Apple talents, and Don Garber was particularly excited about the new schedule change, saying Saturday is a day of sports. He can remember waking up and on Saturdays and just watching soccer, knowing that's the designated day for the sport. So he's glad Major League Soccer can finally be a whole part of that, and knowing people everywhere can wake up on Saturdays knowing the league is absolutely on and in focus. So
I think that's a big thing, right? Because like when you would look at MLS in the past seasons, you would just not know when games, like there'd be like a random Wednesday game out of nowhere or a random Thursday game. You'd be like, wait, is this part of this week? Is this part of that? Is this a makeup game? So having that, and like you said, knowing every Saturday I'm going to wake up, there's going to be MLS games on at 6:30, 7:30. I think it's 7:30 local time across the board or whatever. That's huge.
Yeah, it's really important. And as you said, they were a little scattered last season. We had games on Sunday, on Mondays. So having it all be collected on one day in one place with the Apple deal, it's truly exciting. And I think we're about to see a new Major League Soccer way happening in 2023. So first and foremost, I guess, let's get into it. MLS predictions for this season.
Here we go. Are you ready?
So, top 2 teams from each conference for you.
Yeah, I think you're going to look. I think Philly has to be up there. They're a team that has not really lost anybody and has improved still either defensively and improved the team as a whole. So Philly in the East is absolutely going to be up there. And I think the second East team that you could find up there may be Cincinnati, in my opinion. They have an unbelievable attack. They've kind of bolstered that defense a little bit. So that second East team, I think, is going to be Cincinnati. Again, another team that hasn't really lost too much. Didn't lose Brenner despite talks with, I think, Nottingham Forest. So they're another team who brings back all their firepower and should be a force in the Eastern Conference. And what I think is probably going to be a weaker Eastern Conference than we've seen in recent years due to some of the things we might get into. And then Western Conference rise, I'm not really changing anything. It's going to be the same top 2 teams from last year, LAFC and Austin. Again, you lose Chicho Arango, so that obviously is an important player for LAFC, but with the talent they have, they should be in the top 2 again, along with Austin. So that's how I have that breaking down.
Yeah, so on the East, I completely agree. I think Jim Curtin and the project he's managed with the Philadelphia Union is phenomenal. His players are dedicated, they're excited, and they really didn't lose anyone roster-wise, so there's no reason they shouldn't be just as motivated. And I think something that played to their disadvantage last season was the fact that they lacked an experience against a team like LAFC heading into MLS Cup. And it's not the case this year. They're coming back from being Eastern Conference champions. They're getting into new tournaments, international tournaments. Obviously, they're going to have Leagues Cup, so they'll have experience there. But heading into MLS Cup again, it's not something they're not used to now. They know what the atmosphere is like in the craziest of ways. We know the 2022 MLS Cup was one of the best, if not the best so far. So, and they were part of that. And they 3-3, I mean, they went down kicking. So it really should be a bonus point for them heading into this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if Cincinnati's going to be in the number 2, but I do like their team. Brandon Vasquez staying and rejecting Chivas. It definitely caused a lot of controversy, but he remains committed to the team and to the project. Him with Lucho Acosta, Brenner, they definitely can do some damage. But speaking on experience again, I don't know if that will hurt them. I'm not sure if they're ready to be number 2 quite yet.
I think for me, with Cincinnati, it's you look at the Eastern Conference table, and it's hard to pick someone else that you can see in the Eastern Conference being that number 2 team. New York City FC is not going to be as good as they were. They
lost everyone.
They lost everyone. They're not going to be there.
Players.
You can make the same case about Red Bulls as you do about Cincinnati with experience, as they're a younger team who has experience, but not there yet. Orlando City, another team that could be up there, but I don't know. Toronto, a team that wasn't great last year, and you're looking to move. They're looking to move up, and they're going to be better, but will they be the number 2 team? Who knows?
Toronto is great, and they're definitely bound to do so much better than they did last season. Some of their big players are back. Lorenzo Insigne is ready to roll. However, they haven't shown anything on the field that's convinced me enough to say they're going to be number 2.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously
exactly.
we know Brandon Vasquez, like his potential and the amount of goals he scored. And then of recent, obviously we've seen him in the U.S. men's national team scoring and doing great. So that on its own is enough to propel Cincinnati over Toronto for me.
Yeah. Are we talking about dark horse candidates?
Because dark horse is completely different.
Okay. Because I know Edwin. Edwin our producer will like my dark horse candidate because I do truly believe in this team. But again, you look down the line, Nashville will be interesting for the first time in the Western Conference or in the Eastern Conference. Nashville will be interesting, so we'll see how they pan out. But it's a very, like, honestly, if you compare it to the Western Conference, it's a very weak Eastern Conference this year. So I don't see how Philadelphia doesn't run away with it.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference lost a lot of players. And I guess during MLS Media Day in January, we spoke to Dan Gazdag, we spoke to Jack McGlynn, and I asked them both the question that what does Philadelphia Union need to become a championship winning team? And it's funny because they weren't even together when I was asking them this, but they both said the same thing. They're like, we're already a championship winning team. We already have what it takes. We don't need anything else. We just failed in penalties. And we know penalties is essentially, I don't want to say a game of luck, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So we definitely know they're capable of winning. We know they're capable of taking down the biggest teams, and they maintain strong. So switching over to the West, I agree. LAFC, Austin FC. I do think, however, Austin will top the league and LAFC will follow. I don't think the team or fans have realized how much losing Chicho Arango will hurt them in the end. And it was weird to me to see him so underappreciated throughout the season, given the fact that every time they brought him on off the bench, he scored or he provided an assist. I didn't understand the need to trade him constantly. He always
I don't understand it.
Game whenever he played.
I mean, it sounds like, right, because
good on them.
They were in the middle of a contract negotiation, correct? Is that a part of the reason? So it sounds to me like LAFC didn't want to pay the money, and they were just like, might as well get rid of him at the top of his form or whatever. But I don't know how you trade him. He was so good for them. That's going to be a massive loss for them, and that I agree. You could see Austin topping it because the loss of Chicho Arango alone will shake that team a little bit to start the season, I think.
Yeah, and then on the other end, you have Driussi, Diego Faundes, who are on top, and Josh Wolf, who deserves tremendous commendation for the project he's created at Austin FC since day one. I think, obviously, they struggled in their debut season, but the team really understood what Major League Soccer is all about and how to build a roster for the league that they're in. So figuring that out, it's shown. Last year they were phenomenal, a little unlucky at times, and they're coming back. So I think, oddly, we agree on the 4 teams that we've chosen.
Yeah, that is surprising. The West obviously is a little bit more up for grabs. Right. I think, I think there's a little bit more teams that could be in that conversation. But yeah, we do agree, which doesn't happen.
But we won't on dark horses. So
we won't on dark horses.
Who's your number 1 dark horse?
My number 1 dark horse, it's between 2 teams, but I'm going to say the one team first because I've already teased it. I do think Miami is going to be a dark horse in the Eastern Conference. Wrong from the girl who lives in Miami. How is that even possible? But I do think Miami, because I think the addition of Josef Martinez, some of the players that they've added to that team are going to bolster that team. Again, the question becomes, can Phil Neville do what Phil Neville needs to do to make this team work? And that's why they're not in. Again, we released our power rankings, which we'll talk about in a little bit. In my personal opinion, when we discussed this, they were not in my top 10 because of that situation and the fact that we don't know what we're getting. But I do think Miami in the East. Are we doing East and West?
Oh, I was just gonna do one, but we can do.
Okay,
East and
we'll do one. I'll stick with Miami. You go ahead.
Okay. This is why you're wrong. So I agree with José Martinez. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's great. I just have absolutely zero faith in Phil Neville. I think having the team that you do and the players that you have, and saying that making the playoffs, barely making the playoffs, that like final season push to make the playoffs is a phenomenal achievement. I think is putting the bar extremely too low, given the money that you have, the attractive market that you have to convince players. There's no way why Inter Miami shouldn't be in Austin FC in the Eastern Conference. They should have come in so much stronger. They have talent. They have players. Just the head coach has nothing. He has nothing to do.
Lizzy, you better watch what you're saying there. We might get banned from.
I know. I really might. It's like it's just shocking to me. I just don't think Phil Neville knows what he's doing absolutely at all. I think he's gotten extremely lucky with some of the players that he's had. And the choices that he's made, I think he's backed by the officials at Inter Miami, which is great. And I think that's the only reason he hasn't gotten fired. But I just don't think he can do it.
Our producer right now, I have to cut you off. Our producer right now, who also lives in Miami, he is laughing at us right now. He's not happy right now.
He's really not happy with me right now. But he knows how I feel. He definitely knows how I feel. And I'll say this about Miami. I think the second Phil Neville leaves and a head coach is put in his place, Miami will thrive to the top of the Eastern Conference.
Do you think you think Miami would be better if Phil Neville just said go out there and play? Like, do you think they have the talent? Okay, well, that's a different conversation.
I truly think that that's what he does. I don't think he's tactically focused or driven. I don't think he's particularly goes in depth with certain plays. I just think he's more motivational and emotional, which at times works. At times, however, the team is not consistent. The team cannot thrive. Making the playoffs that one time is not an achievement. I'm sorry.
What I will say is that if Inter Miami do not finish in the top, I'm going to say 4 of the Eastern Conference this season, I think Phil Neville should probably seriously consider who the head coach is next season.
Yes,
because this Eastern Conference is not good. Like it's weak. So Inter Miami with the players they have should be in the top 4.
Yes. However, my dark horse is San Jose.
Wow. That's not what I was expecting to say. I thought you were going to pick my other dark horse. So
who's your other dark horse?
I maybe they're not a dark horse, but considering how they played last year, I think KC is going to be significantly.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll explain why I don't think KC is a dark horse.
But explain San Jose first, because I need to know why you chose San Jose.
I'm really looking forward to seeing Luchi Gonzalez come in as a head coach. I think it's disappointing to see San Jose come in last constantly. I know Edwin is not happy with me today. I'm terrified of hanging up this call and having to confront him. But I'm excited to see the project that he takes on with the San Jose Earthquakes. I think they definitely have talent. Cade Cowell is great. He's definitely a player that can score goals. Jeremy Abovise, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I think that's how it is. Mentioned during MLS Media Day that the entire team is focused on being so much better, that they just need a leader. They need new forms for 2023, but that they're working hard constantly to be better than they were. And I think Gonzalez definitely can build something up from that. He comes from experience. He was an assistant coach to Greg Berhalter at the World Cup and with the U.S. men's national team. Obviously, international football and club soccer are completely different, but I truly think he can take the Earthquakes into something they haven't been before. That said, I don't think they'll be top 4, but I definitely think they're ready to make a jump. And I think that's the essence of a dark horse. I don't think anyone will expect the Quakes to come in swinging, but I definitely do think they have the talent on the roster and talent with leadership to make a difference. Sporting Kansas City, however, It's not my dark horse because I expect them to be so
Okay,
much
that's
better.
fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Last season was a fluke because everyone was injured. I know. Everyone was injured last season.
No, yeah, last season was
out. Everybody had an ACL tear. Everybody was recuperating. And Peter Vermees is a very, very talented head coach, but there's only so much you can do when everybody's on the sidelines.
And you saw what they looked like after everybody got back and they made the couple signings that they did. I mean, they were a different team. They only lost 2 of their last 10 games. So that team is going to come out on fire, I think, this season.
100%. I just don't think that emulates dark horse energy because I know how good they can be. And I think we all know how good they can be. But last season was beyond anyone's control. I think it happened to them that for the first time in MLS history, 3 DPs were on the sidelines because of injuries. So that was shocking. There was no way to avoid that. Absolutely impossible to predict as well. So yeah, they should come out at least top 4 for me in the West. But
they should. They probably should. I would.
Yeah,
agree.
Peter Vermees is great. It was very interesting to hear the rumor that he was interviewed for the head coaching position at the U.S. men's national team, but rejected it and instead stayed with Sporting Kansas City. He also just signed a contract extension, which would see him by the end of that contract be with the club for 20 years. And we know he's not only the head coach, but the sporting director. He's done phenomenal for the team and is an absolute staple. So I'm honestly glad he's staying.
Yeah, no, he's a great coach, and that team is, like we said, I mean, with him at the helm, no matter what, they were going to be significantly better this season.
So the Wooden Spoon nominees to finish dead last in their conferences. Who do you think it'll be?
The Wooden Spoon nominees. I didn't know that was even a thing. To finish dead last in their conference?
Yeah, Wooden Spoon is like the last place of both conferences. You get the Wooden Spoon.
That's very interesting. I like that, though. That's very cool. I didn't know that. So Wooden Spoon, let's start with the Eastern Conference. Chicago.
Yes.
I'm going with Chicago.
Me too.
It has to be Chicago because they just did not. They lost a lot of people and did not make any changes.
And I think Shaqiri, having him be as a player, that monumental player, game-changing, and he has not lived up to those expectations. Sad because obviously Liverpool history, whatever, but disappointing. He hasn't really done anything to transform the team into what it needs to be. So having that said, and no new game-changing signings.
Yeah, I mean, they need Shabilko to be so much better than he was last season. They need the defense to make sense. They need a goalkeeper.
And Duran left as well. There's no chance.
They're going to finish in last place.
Yeah.
And I don't like saying this because I really think that they're going to succeed in the future. I think they have a very good setup. But in the West, I can't think of it being anybody but St. Louis. I think they're going to have a really tough time in this Western Conference this season. I think some teams will be worse than they were last season. I think Minnesota, with the situations they're already dealing with the way they fell off towards the end of last season, I can't see Minnesota being a playoff team. So they're going to be near the bottom, I think. But I don't think that they're going to be dead last. I think St. Louis is probably going to struggle a little bit in that Western Conference, have some growing pains. And I think, unfortunately for them, but they will finish in last. But that's okay. You know, you're an expansion team. You're not supposed to come in first place. You're not, we saw with Charlotte last year, them just making or just having an opportunity to make the playoffs towards the end of the season was a massive success.
Right.
So that's who I have in the West.
I agree. I'm disappointed by Minnesota. I think they truly do have a chaotic situation going on, way beyond the joking fun that we say MLS chaos entails.
Yeah.
So we know Adrian Heath, the head coach, has been talking to Emmanuel Reynoso through another person. He has yet to come back. We don't necessarily know why. All that was cited by the league and the team was personal reasons.
Yeah.
He was also fined by the league for not making any preseason games or trainings, which, again, understandable, but no one really knows what's going on there. Or if he has a return date, I would assume not, because it's Friday and the season starts tomorrow and there's no news yet. But understanding what's going on there and how they ended up last season towards the end with Reynoso, it'll be difficult to see them succeed, which is disappointing. I think he has a good project on his hands, and I think he has potential as a coach, but he definitely has not.
He's just got to. There's been too many problems over there, man. There's just like towards the end of that season, they once they lost Reynoso to the injury, and he just never was himself again. They were bad.
Yeah.
Like they were bad. So not having
Reynoso on one player.
Yeah,
you cannot depend on one player.
Yeah. So not having Reynoso now is going to be an issue for them to start the season again. So there's going to be some problems for them. I think Minnesota is going to be towards the bottom of that Western Conference.
Yeah. Now
they do have a nice kid.
They really do. There's some really good kids this year.
Yes, there are.
MVP.
I've been debating. I think the easy situation in my mind, I think Driussi is a leading candidate for it because I think he's got that grind, like that I got gypped last year a little bit. I think he's got the chip on his shoulder a little bit, thinking, I should have won it last year. I think he's going to go for it this season, and that's why I think he's near the top. I can see somebody like Daniel Gazdag being up there as well, Eastern Conference wise, because of that Philly team being so good. I think he's going to have even more to work with now. But I'm going to go with Driussi as the easy. Wow, you're so smart. You really picked a hard decision or a hard pick there. You really went out on a limb decision for me.
No, but I would agree. I think in a hot take sense, I completely agree with what you said, and I would rest assured knowing that Driussi would win. But I can also see, if he lives up to his potential, Brandon Vazquez coming in as an MVP. I think he's been phenomenal individually, whether or not Cincinnati actually get to that MLS Cup or even conference final. I think individually he's shown the potential that he has. And if he keeps scoring as he has, he'll be phenomenal.
You could make a case for any of those front three, whether it's Brenner, him, or and the name is slipping my head.
Lucho Acosta.
Yeah, because I think what's going to happen with Lucho Acosta possibly is he might turn into a central. He's going to turn into a central figure now with having Vazquez and Brenner up top together for another season. He might just go on a run and just have crazy amount of assists and some sick goals and just good numbers this season.
I think he will have good numbers, but I don't think it's MLS MVP quality. Okay. The thing with Lucho Acosta is I covered him while he was at DC United a couple of years ago, and what I saw from him day in and day out was inconsistencies. I think he's a very emotional player, which at times can work to your advantage, but then can also hurt you during games. And during those losses, it was difficult to come back from, and especially if they started out the game losing, I think it would get to his head a little bit. Now, I don't want to judge too harshly because it was the season after the talks with PSG had broken down, and we all know that broke his spirit a little bit. And it took him a while to recover from that on the pitch. But that's what I mean. I think it's a little inconsistent to be an individual standout talent.
Yeah, I get that.
And Vazquez, I think, can
be that guy. Yeah, no, I get that. I completely agree with that. You know, it's funny. It's funny we haven't mentioned a name. We haven't mentioned the previous MVP candidate, or the MVP winner, I should say, and Hani Mukhtar, who is so funny because everybody considered him an underdog and didn't underappreciated him all the way through his campaign, and he wins the MLS MVP, and we're still underappreciating him.
We really are.
Let's be honest here, in that Eastern Conference, he is going to have a great season.
Yeah,
he will be up there with the names. I just don't know if he's going to win it this season, but he will be up there. But Driussi, it just seems like the sure bet to, and he did win the Golden Boot, but Driussi seems like the sure bet to go grab it this season based on, having that chip on that shoulder and, going out there and wanting to perform every week and just, could be leading his team to number one in the Western Conference. So
it's always difficult to defend a title. I think that second time around, it's more difficult.
Because you have to do exactly what you did the last season and then some. Yeah, exactly.
And better. And I think he's going to be great. He is very happy at Nashville. Again, we spoke at Media Day and we talked about the impact that mental health has on the game. And he spoke about how happy he is and how he's doing. So he may as well do great. I just don't think he's going to win again. There is absolutely so much more to cover, but
so much more.
Everything is going on right now.
Yeah.
So we have to cover it in other outlets as well. So stay tuned on 90min _US Twitter, 90min USA Instagram, TikTok. Definitely check out 90min.com/US because that's where all our breaking news, exclusive coverages, and interviews are going up. So definitely check that out. And we'll be back next week to cover everything from the weekend. And I'm sure what will be breaking news by then.
Yes, I'm sure.
And Liga MX because we didn't give them some love this program. But next episode, we'll talk about how Cruz Azul finally won a game. So thanks for that.
All right.
See you later. Bye.